The following copyrighted material is presented under the provisions of fair use, all rights reserved where applicable.
The Black Madonna Suite.
We're gonna get on down now.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is a journey into
History.
1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four.
This is a journey into
History. History.
From childhood, we've been told countless times that these specific images are the unquestionable likeness of the Madonna and her son. Most attempts to question this have been met with resistance or ignorance. Are these images accurate? Several centuries of evidence shows otherwise. 6/25/1988, PBS, The Bill Moyer Show. Late comparative mythologist, lecturer, and writer Joseph Campbell proclaims the antique model for the Madonna actually is Isis with Horus at her breast. 1833, Godfrey Higgins, English historian, writes the following in his monumental work, Anacalypsis, Volume 1, pages 138 to 139. In all the Romish countries of Europe, the god Christ, as well as his mother, are described in their old pictures and statues to be black. The Romish priests, they have endeavored to disguise the fact by pretending that the child had become black by the smoke of the candles. How came the candles not to blacken the white of the eyes, the teeth, and the shirt? Their real blackness is not to be questioned for a moment. Several other European historians and clergy, such as Gerald Massey, T.W. Doane, Kelsey Graves, Conyers Middleton, and Albert Churchward would say the exact same thing. As stated before, the European Madonna, also called the Virgin Mary, has its origins in the goddess Aset and her son Heru, known as Isis and Horus in the Greek language. In the book Black Women in Antiquity, Danita Red tells how Aset and Heru were not only worshipped in Africa, but that this worship had spread over most of the Western world at that time. After the Greeks and Romans turned Egypt into a Greco-Roman territory from 323 BC onwards, they co-opted the worship of Aset and adapted it to their own standards, even depicting many of their own Greek and Roman goddesses with African features and dark skin, as shown here and here. Soon, a foreign religion that came to be called Christianity began to spread across Europe. As it did, disagreements arose, resulting in several conferences devised to decide the official ground rules. Simultaneously, Images began to appear, especially not long after the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD, where the Virgin Mary was declared as the Mother of God. Danita Red says, in ancient Constantinople, there lived a painter named Luke. Known as Holy Luke because of his pious nature, he spent most of his life painting pictures of the Virgin Mary. Accounts of these early portraits of the Virgin Mary mention that she was depicted with dark skin and Ethiopian facial features. She also speaks about how multitudes came to worship this image, which is something that still happens today, but in a private manner. Here is a picture of Pope John Paul II bowing to a black Madonna in Poland, which is also done by many popes today. January 730 AD, the iconoclasm. Byzantine Emperor Leo III issues an edict ordering the destruction of religious icons. Many of the black Madonnas are destroyed. However, many were hidden, and several still exist all over Europe today. British psychic and author Cassandra Eason states, "The Black Madonna is the hidden secret in the heart of Catholicism, the old, often demonized pagan goddess. In some cases, Black Madonnas are the oldest of statues." Cassandra also states that the majority of them are in France. Italian Joseph Sciorra tells of a storefront Black Madonna chapel built by Sicilian immigrants in Manhattan. He quotes an Abbot Spitaleri who stated in 1751 that the exceedingly miraculous image of the Most Holy Mary, who with marvelous portent came from Africa. BlackHistoryFactOrFiction.com states there are about 400 to 500 Black Madonnas in Europe. There are also several places here in the United States with Black Madonnas. Now, after seeing all these instances of Black Madonnas, as well as the multitudes of people worshiping them, why is this one still considered unquestionable? Let's go back again to medieval Europe. During this time, the Roman Catholic Church had taken control of Christianity and much of Europe itself. In Florence, Italy, there were several influential and powerful families and artists who began to paint biblical personalities in the likeness of their friends and family members. The Florentine.net speaks of an Italian monk named Fra Filippo Lippi, saying Lippi, then 50 years old, encountered Lucrezia Butti. He immediately fell in love with the beautiful young Florentine nun. He convinced the Mother Superior of Santa Margherita to allow Lucrezia to model as the Virgin Mary for another commission he was painting. Here's a picture from the National Gallery of Art saying the exact same thing from 1440. There were also several powerful families in Florence. One of these families was the Medici, another were the Borgias. Painter Sandro Botticelli's 1480 painting, Madonna del Magnificat, shows the Virgin Mary modeled by Piero de' Medici's wife, Lucrezia Turnabuni, and her daughter, Lucrezia de' Medici, as the baby Jesus. Lucrezia Borgia and her brother Caesar were used as models for the Virgin Mary and Jesus, as shown in these pictures from various sources from the late 1400s to early 1500s. See the obvious similarities? Some still may be saying, what's wrong with using these pictures? Let's connect the dots. Number one, the Borgia family was used literally as an inspiration for a high-grossing crime epic and top-selling 1972 film. What film was it? The Godfather. Reformation.org, quoting page 371 of the book The Family by Mario Puzo, says Mario was fascinated with Renaissance Italy and especially with the Borgia family. He swore that they were the original crime family and that their adventures were much more treacherous than any of the stories he ever told. Number two, Rodrigo Borgia, aka Pope Alexander VI, drafts Inter Caetera in 1493 with such phrases as, "The Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased." and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. A debate raged on afterwards between those for and against slavery. 1537. Not all popes were pro-slavery. One example of some anti-slavery popes, Pope Paul III issues Sublimis Deus, a decree that while recognizing the humanity of those called Indians, did little to stop the brutal colonization of them. However, there was not much of a debate at all concerning another group. 1564. John Hawkins, considered the pioneer of the English slave trade, sails to West Africa in one of Queen Elizabeth's personal ships. What was the ship called? The Jesus of Lubeck. He also had this coat of arms on the ship. With all the brutal conquest that was going on at that time, especially as European images of Mary and Jesus begin to proliferate, it is not out of place to suspect that their use was deliberately employed to subjugate thousands of people. Images themselves aren't necessarily good or bad. It's the history and psychological context, intent, and effect of them that should be questioned and understood, especially since we're taught these things subliminally in our early years. Why do I say that? Let's go back to 1939. Psychologist Kenneth and Mamie Clark gather some black children between the ages of 6 and 9, present them several times with both white and black dolls, ask them 7 pertinent questions about the dolls, and then finally ask the children to pick a doll. Most of the children picked the white dolls. Repeatedly, the children said the black dolls were quote-unquote bad and picked the white ones as they were quote-unquote prettier and nicer. 2005, Kiri Davis, a young black woman filmmaker, does an updated version of the test in her short film A Girl Like Me. Sadly, the results were the same. 2009, Good Morning America does the test again. The black boy said both dolls were pretty, but the black girl said the white one was the pretty one. This mindset, subliminally taught to most of us in childhood, as previously shown, persists through adulthood in many. Another example, Dr. Yosef A. Ben Yakinen in his book, Are Black Seminarians and Black Clergy Without a Black Theology? Dr. Ben, as he is known, tells how the late Reverend James Holloman put up a black Madonna and installed an African-centered theological library in a church basement, only to be met with harsh treatment and people leaving the church. Sadly, Reverend Holloman died of a massive cerebral hemorrhage. I leave you all with this. Whatever it is you believe in, seek and understand the origins, history, and developmental context within which it developed, and above all, do not stop searching for the truth. Thank you for watching episode 2 of Critical Eye Sundial, brought to you by City World, from my city to your world. Viewers are always encouraged to log on to pivico.com as well as the following for more information.
This is a